the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Now I do see it now.
All right.
Does that mean we're official?
We're official. The red light is on.
Welcome, everybody. We're here back
Hello.
once again. Another week.
Another week. I'm really excited about this show because I was very engaged by all of our assignments this week.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. I will say my wife was thrilled that we're set to talk The Last Unicorn. So she curled up on the couch with me. She was all excited, and within 2 minutes, she fell asleep.
Oh.
And I'm just like, you were so young.
So are you going to watch it again, does this mean?
Probably, because it's on. I ended up watching it on Amazon Prime, which is free. But I know I own this on DVD, and I could not find it anywhere. So the only thing I can think of is my sister, Katie, if you're listening. I might have loaned it to her for the kids to watch.
I see.
So
which DVD is it? Because I was reading the history of the release.
I think it was the 25th anniversary.
Yep. Yeah, that was the edition released a few years before the Shout Factory. I was so happy because I got this from my library. They had the Shout Factory Blu-ray. It was unbelievable. Loved it.
It looked nice on Amazon, but then again, there was some still grain. So I don't know without comparing the two if the Shout Factory is superior, but it looked pretty clean. It was nice.
But that's later.
But that is later. That's later. We have to talk about a new movie, which just dropped on Friday.
And I think this is the first movie that we can list in our title as being 2021. Officially.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Raya and the
That's
Last
great.
Dragon.
So we got, not only do we have The Last Dragon and The Last Unicorn, but sadly, the last episode of WandaVision.
Yep.
So we got a theme going here, kids.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully not the last episode of TMI.
No. So on that note, Jim, nice segue. I want to talk directly to the listeners for just a couple of minutes because we've been doing this, 100? Are we 170 episodes in now?
This is 168.
We do this week in, week out. We do it out of a labor of love. We set this up because we want to talk movies. And if you're listening to us on a weekly basis, then obviously you love movies as well. So we are going to ask you to do three things. One, if you've not already, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you have available, what you're listening to. But more importantly, tell a friend. If you like this show and you like what we do, share it with somebody. More than likely, if you like movies, you have friends who like movies. So we want to grow our audience. The one thing I will say, I've been listening to a ton of podcasts in the last couple of weeks, and the amount of ads and product placement sponsorship is crazy. And again, if you listen to the show, we have none of that. We don't have Patreon. We don't do Kickstarter. We wouldn't have time to do Patreon, to be honest with you. We barely have enough to do our regular content, not to do bonus content on the back. And so you're probably never going to see Patreon. We're not going to ask you for money. We're not going to run Manscaped ads. Some of this stuff, Anyways, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review, please. Even if you give it 5-star and then crap on us in the comment section, who cares? Because that helps grow our audience, right? That's what we want to do. We want to keep doing this. It does cost money to maintain this. We do have overhead costs. We pull that all out of pocket. The only platform we have right now, which we can raise any kind of income, I guess, is our TeePublic page. We do have a TeePublic page set up where you can buy t-shirts. We have some TMI branded items on there. You can get a face mask, coffee mug, t-shirts, phone case, and that's it. That's pretty much the only 3 things you can do to support us right now. So teepublic.com/user/movie-nerd. And that's it. Listen, we appreciate people who come back week after week. We're getting feedback, emails. We got an email last week. Somebody listened to our show. Greg, I believe, was lamenting the fact that he too was a huge Brotherhood of the Wolf fan and was sad that we're not able to talk about it. As a matter of fact, he was quite surprised that we even knew about this movie. He thought he was all alone. So,
which is the great thing about cult movies, right? Because it speaks to you, and to find somebody else that's like-minded.
Yeah,
that's the very definition of cult, right?
Cult. Are we a cult? I don't know. I do like the fact that he said he didn't always agree with us, but he still comes back. So I think that
that's very good.
We don't always agree with each other, but we still come back.
No, correct.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think we agree that when we don't agree, sometimes that makes for better radio. Then we're all in agreement. This episode may be just one big love fest. I'm gonna guess. So anyways, that's it. Thank you for listening week in, week out. We truly appreciate you guys. We love you. Follow those 3 steps, please. Help us out. And now back to our regular scheduled program.
Time for some news.
Yes. Is it time for some news? Do we have any news?
Geez, I just talked enough. Now I'm going to talk some more.
You're going to talk some more.
We have good news, bad news. So the good news is movie theaters across the country are reopening, including New York City, which is huge. Now, Christina, you said last week that the Music Box was reopening?
Music Box is open, and the state of Illinois has given permission for theaters to open. So some other independent theaters have opened here. You know, Music Box has a very specific clientele, and they don't run really blockbusters, stuff like that. Yeah. But we have some independent theaters that do that stuff, do what you might call a mainstream movie. So, and they're reopened, but still no word yet on Regal. The AMCs are open here.
AMCs are open here as well. And if I had known, if I was smart enough to even think for a minute to look up showtimes, I would have loved to have seen Raya in the theater. And it looks like it's going to take the box office this week because there's really nothing else.
There's nothing else.
Cool. I did see that Cinemark is refusing to play Raya because it dropped on Disney at the same time. So some of these theaters are holding their ground. But yeah, looks like revenue's up 14%, which is 40% more than it was last week.
Right.
So it's a good sign. People want to go back to the theater. So that's my good news. The bad news is that the Alamo Draft House has filed for bankruptcy.
What?
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. We have one in Yonkers. But obviously the home base, the one that started it all in Austin, Texas. Very eclectic art house, if anybody knows of the Alamo Draft House. Yeah, it's sad. Maybe they can get their act together, refinance. I don't know how many franchise chains they have because the one in Yonkers just opened a couple years ago. I don't think there's many of them.
There's not.
I don't think that, though, what I read, that the bankruptcy necessarily means that they were going to close. I think they were trying to restructure.
Chapter 11, you're probably going to restructure. And
it's kind of inevitable. I mean, it's more than a year without.
I know. And that's
theaters
the
open.
writing on the wall with Regal. The fact that I went on the Regal app yesterday and it says my theater's open. They're not even putting any information out. They're not even updating. It's just, nothing on the marquee, everything shuttered.
I think that they're just, but now that New York City is committed, I think, to reopening, my opinion is then that the studios will stick to their release dates, assuming, no more big surges.
Right.
If the studios can see that the theaters are committed to being open, then they'll release some stuff. So maybe we'll be able to see Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, I am going to see Godzilla versus Kong in theater. It is. I just was mentioning to Jim earlier because the AMC in the Palisades Mall across the river is open and it's got showings, but they don't have anything blocked for that weekend of Kong.
Right. Well, these are, bizarre circumstances. So maybe they're not selling in advance like they used to. So
But the
it'll
problem is
play.
at
It's gotta play.
at 25% capacity, you can only sell so many tickets anyways. So don't you think that you would want to do that in advance so you know how many screens you can squeeze in? Like a lot of the Raya screenings in Manhattan were sold out.
The Regal near me has 18 screens.
Yeah.
So-
Even my one over here has got 8, 10.
But they could potentially have like 9 screens open with Godzilla versus Kong at,
Yep. 3 of them, right? Yeah,
quarter
right.
capacity.
Yep.
They just reopened. So maybe they're just getting their ducks in a row. Who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean, I was surprised. Like I said, if I had the fortitude and the thought to at least look online before I jumped on Disney Plus and plunked down my $30. Was I living under a rock? How did I not know that this was a premium access movie?
I don't know.
I guess I really wasn't paying attention.
I didn't know specifically, but I was expecting it to be. So it wasn't
Okay.
that big of a surprise to me.
But as Christina points out all the time, $30, that's the price of 2 tickets. Not even. If I'm going to the AMC, I am going to support them by buying the largest bucket of popcorn and soda. I am going to put whatever money I can into their coffers. But I never in a million years would have gotten my wife to jump in the car and drive to a theater. Sitting at home, we both watch this together. So
Our whole family goes to every movie
Yeah.
we watch for the show. So at a minimum, if we go to the first showing a day, which is still technically matinee price is $11 a ticket.
yeah.
That's before taxes and like any fee that gets put on if you buy your tickets online. And so you figure right there, that's like $35, $36.
Yeah.
And then you go and you buy popcorn for 3
Mhm.
people and
yeah.
and a drink, and my son needs to have a bag of Skittles, and so you end up paying a lot more to go to the theater. Now that said, I still prefer the theater experience.
Oh, I think we all do.
But just to put it in perspective for people
Yes.
who are like, oh, $30 is a lot. If you took your family to the movies, it would cost you more.
Correct.
So,
And Raya will be free for Disney Plus subscribers in June.
yeah.
So right now they're running just like kind of what HBO did. Well, no, then it's the opposite.
Is that
They
the case with
dropped it for
Mulan? Can you see that for
Mulan,
free
yes,
now?
correct. Mulan was a perfect example. It's $30 up front. Now I think you can watch it free on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So they basically treat that premiere access similar to a theatrical window.
Mhm. The issue is that we're talking about this movie that maybe a lot of people have not seen yet.
Yeah.
But that's always the case. We want to stay
Yeah,
on
I
the
know.
edge,
Listen,
right?
we'll be there. We're gonna have microphone in hand the minute we walk out of the theater for Godzilla.
Yeah.
I am not gonna stop.
Yeah. And that being said, there will be spoilers of this movie. So if you haven't watched
Yes.
Raya yet and you
Again,
want
if
to
you-
watch the film without knowing anything in advance, please pause this podcast, watch the movie, and come back and listen to our thoughts.
I do know that I have I have friends, but we have listeners who will listen to the news up front, and then if they have not seen the first movie, they will skip it, go back later and listen to it. That's all the news I have, unless you guys have something else.
Right now, as we said, Raya and the Last Dragon
Yes,
on Disney
and-
Plus, and it's been long awaited. This is not a Pixar. This is Disney Studios, and you have the welcome Steamboat Willie opening of this.
He's not whistling though.
He's not whistling, no, but it was still nice to see him. Before we begin with the story, let me just say that the animation in this movie is beautiful.
It's beyond beautiful.
It's
It is.
beyond beautiful. This is like rivals and, dare I say, surpasses much of the Pixar stuff. Even this is Disney Studio has really got their feet.
The world building in this is exquisite. It is an absolute joy to look at. You want to get lost in it. It's the level of detail it's gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful.
The facial expressions alone are amazing on these characters. Raya especially. She is fully formed character. It's like it's like watching a real film.
I see. This is where I really wish I had seen this in the theater. So it was a missed opportunity on my part. But I don't know if you remember, but this was my most anticipated movie of 2021. I think you took Kong versus Godzilla, so I had to backtrack. But this Raya was up there, and that was really. I don't even remember like seeing the trailer. I just remember seeing a lot of the initial concept art for it. Again, the world building, the character designs. We'll get into all of this stuff. Water is hands down known to be the hardest element to animate, and 3/4 of this movie takes place in water, and it is breathtaking. It is. This is a world you want to go and live in. Like, I want to see. I'm gonna tip my hands right now. This is my favorite Disney princess ever. I am so in love with this movie. I am so in love with this character, and I want a series. I want to see these characters weekly. It'll never do it justice for the movie itself, but I was blown away by this.
Well, I think she's beyond princess, you know?
Well, okay. I mean, I'm putting her into, the Disney princess block because
this is like a superhero. This is, okay, let's get into it. This is, you're talking about world building. So this takes place, this is a completely fictionalized world. It's very contained, almost like a Middle Earth. So you don't know, what's going on beyond the bound of this land called Kumandra.
Or do we need to know?
Correct. Right. This is the character's reality, and
yes.
It's our
and
reality.
You can tell
watching
it is very much Cambodia influenced. A lot of I don't know. There's a bunch of
Vietnam, Thailand,
Laos.
The whole like Southeast Asia region is incorporated. There was a couple of scenes where if you've ever seen like just photographs of the mountains in Vietnam, you'd be like, oh, those are like the Vietnamese mountains there. Like, you can definitely see the influence of that part of the world.
But what's neat about that is that we've never really seen that in any type of a movie like this world. So
there are those realistic elements, but there's also the complete fantasy elements mixed in with the dragons, all these fantastical creatures that inhabit this world as well.
Tuk alone is just probably one of the
voiced by Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk.
Tudyk.
Where's this guy coming out of the woodwork? He is everywhere now.
So we get a history lesson right up front, beautifully rendered. So Kumandra, 500 years prior, is devastated by the Droon, which are these evil spirit demon type things.
I thought it was Agatha Harkness. She was just
it was very similar, actually.
Yeah,
they have
purple
with their purple magic. So they just suck the life out of everything that they come into contact with, turn humans to stone. So whenever the Droon touches you, the life is sucked out of you and you become a statue. With your hands out, almost in prayer and gesticulation.
Yeah, that was a very interesting thing that kind of comes back at the end. I was like, I actually thought that through.
The Droons take over Kumandra, and the dragons that live in Kumandra, there's 5 dragons, and they use their magic. They pool their magic to create a gem to destroy the Droon. In order to do this, they have to completely give up their life force in a way to create this gem and give the gem to their sister, Sisu, who is the 5th dragon, who a little bit later on reveals herself to kind of be the one that's always in the background, the black sheep of the family, if you will. So she takes the gem and destroys the Droon. So from that point on, it should be a happy ending, but it is not. Humanity, after the dragons have sacrificed themselves, and Sisu has disappeared after the Droon are destroyed, humanity breaks into 5 factions, which are the body parts of a dragon: tail, talon, spine, fang, and heart. Now, heart is the focus of the story from the beginning, because this is where that dragon gem, which still exists, is housed. The people of heart are the keepers of this gem. And rather than have some idyllic land after the Droon are gone, no, because of human nature, everyone in the other lands are jealous of heart, because they think because they have the gem, they're prospering. That it's giving them an advantage.
Really why we can't have nice things.
That's why we can't have nice things.
Nice going, humans. Humans ruined it for everybody.
So Chief Benja, played by Daniel Day Kim, and this character looks exactly like Daniel Day Kim.
That's actually something I noticed that they did throughout, because later like you see Sisu, like the human form of Sisu looks like Aquafina.
Yes.
And
yes.
the character Namari, she looks like Gemma Chan. Like the characters actually resemble the actors that play them, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny. You even go back to like Toy Story, and you look at Woody now, and you can't unsee Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the animators do a really good job of kind of watching the actors.
So it makes me wonder, because, you know, we all know what Tom Hanks went through if you watch the bonus features on Polar Express, you know, and Andy Serkis or anybody else that does motion capture. They have the dots all over their face so they can get.
I don't think this was motion capture, though.
But it's so amazing. It's
this is
especially
a
Chief
to the Disney
Benja.
animators.
Because before I even knew he was voiced by Daniel Day Kim, I'm like, that's Daniel Day Kim. That's, you know, I really hope that that's his voice.
My wife said
that
the
is his
exact same
face.
thing. She can never remember an actor's name, but she's like, that's that guy. We know him. We know him. And then I had to pause the movie and go on IMDb. And I'm like, it's Daniel Day Kim. She goes, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, can I watch my movie now? This one she stayed awake for, by the way.
She did. Okay,
Yes,
that's good.
yes,
That's good.
yeah.
So Chief Benja, he is the head of Heart, and he is a single dad. Raya is his daughter, and they are the keepers of the Dragon Gem. So right up at the beginning, Chief Benja has a desire to bring the lands of Kumandra back together again. He doesn't want the jealousy. He doesn't want the infighting. So right up front, he invites them all to like a big banquet feast in Heart. And I just made a note to myself, this cannot end well.
No,
this is not going to end
a
well.
mile away,
Yeah.
right?
All the various representatives of all the different lands show up, and you kind of get like a little overview of what each of these lands is like. You've got Spine, which is like a bamboo forest, Fang, which everybody is afraid of because they're merciless. So everybody shows up, and Raya is very hesitant about this. Her father is very idealistic, but Raya is very hesitant. So everybody's kind of on edge when all these other factions show up. The daughter of Varana, who is the queen of Fang, Namari, as soon as the two girls, Raya and Namari, kind of face off with each other, they realize they have connections and they become friends, and they run off hand in hand together. So that kind of breaks the ice, and everybody starts to loosen up. They attend this dinner. We cut to Raya and Namari talking, and Raya decides to open up and show her the Dragon Gem.
Bad move. But they're connected because Namari has this Sisu pendant. And
Which is great.
They're both quote unquote dragon nerds.
Mm-hmm.
So you
super
immediately
fans. Yeah.
So you immediately connect, you know, and yeah. You got yourself a new friend, because the thing is that why she was so distrustful is that they just perpetuated these stories about each other. You know, oh well, the Fang, they're evil and their cats are even angrier, you know, kind of a thing, and we can't trust any of them. You know, everyone's got a story about why I can't be friends with you, but she lets her in and
She
immediately gets betrayed.
Yeah. Immediately gets betrayed. Kicks her in the back when she's showing her the chamber that houses the Dragon Gem. And then suddenly everybody shows up because they hear the noise going on. They're all accusing each other of trying to get the gem for themselves. So it's
Which they were.
And it just devolves from there. So they all try to make a grab for the gem, and it falls and breaks into 5 pieces. And immediately the Droon are released. So
They were just waiting.
they were just waiting for the gem,
Biding
because the
their
gem
time.
was probably that talisman that was keeping them at bay. As soon as it's destroyed, then they have free reign. So everybody escapes. It doesn't turn to stone. They're running out of the castle, and unfortunately, Chief Benja, in his effort to save Raya, is turned into a statue. Is turned to stone. You know,
he's
why
a
didn't he
hardcore-
just jump off the bridge with her? Then they could have gone through
That's
this
not how the
together.
story goes.
Yeah.
Hardcore dad right there. Just chucked
Yep.
her over the side into the water. Because that's the one thing that we learned, which is the Droon are afraid of water.
Yes, just like
And-
cats.
And you were talking about, you know, the fact that each one of these villages, these tribes, you know, are a different part of the dragon. The aerial view of the lake that they live on is shaped like a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So the fang is in the mouth and the heart is in the center, and you've got the tail at the tail end. Did they have like drones to go up to see this thing? I'm like, oh, let's call that one tail over there. But it's a really neat graphic.
But it's like old school map makers, right? They could do that without drones.
I guess
It's
so.
true.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
that's why I did not become a topographer. I just
But
walked
that's
along
why
with
I
him.
was saying that this is very world building, because you never see the outside boundaries from that
No.
map. You know, as far as you know, this could be their entire existence, is this
Right.
is this river. So Namari had said something to Raya before they had their altercation, that some think that Sisu still exists, that she just went into the water and floated downstream, upstream, whatever direction towards the tail. So we flash forward after the Drune are released, 6 years, I believe it is.
6 years later.
Later. And so Raya's now a teenager. And what is the name of the little Alan Tudyk guy?
That's
Tuk
Tuk
Tuk.
Tuk.
Tuk Tuk. So
Tuk
he's like a
Tuk.
huge thing now. So she
But,
rides
right,
him like
'cause
one like single wheel.
In this original story, he's like this little hard-shelled hedgehog looking guy. And he's like,
But, like,
he's
with
like
a
palm
bug
size.
shell.
He's like palm size. But yeah, when we cut 6 years later, he's now this mammoth creature that she is riding. He's coiled up like a a dung beetle type of a thing, and she's riding on it. Really cool visual, really neat. Yeah, and he's a great character too.
Tuk Tuk Disneyfies this movie because he is your typical Disney cute animal character that you've got to have, but he's not, he's not cloying. He's just in it just enough.
Yes, agreed.
So by the time 6 years later rolls around, Raya has gone through the entire dragon, and now she's working her way to tail, going along this
The
river
lakes,
to
right,
see
the
if she
rivers.
can find Sisu.
And you realize that you find out that somewhere along the line, she stole the map that Namari had shown her
From Fang.
from Fang. Yeah, so she had infiltrated there and stole the map. How'd she get her dad's sword? Did I miss that?
Her dad
was,
gave it to her.
was she holding it when he kicked her
Yeah.
over the side? Okay,
Mhm.
that was just the
That was a
that's
phenomenal
another
sword.
that sword. This again, the world building, the little tiny details of stuff like that, and the sword. I mean, again, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that's derivative of other stuff we have seen, because I think it was Pacific Rim. One of the characters actually had a sword that broke apart like a whip. Same exact.
Yeah,
but-
so it like breaks into segments and it
Right,
stretches out. So exactly, yes, it's like a whip.
So she can use it to Indiana Jones swing. There's some straight up Raiders of the Lost Ark references, but it doesn't matter because it just works so well.
So she's makes her way to tail, which is the very tip of the map. So she's got nowhere else to go.
It is literally like the last river that she has not explored.
And she
What
finds
does she
Sisu.
find?
She finds Sisu. There's a shipwreck. She finds Sisu. She still has the piece of the gem that stayed in Heart, because conveniently the gem
5
broke
pieces.
into 5 pieces, and each of the representatives from each of the lands took one. So now each land has a piece of the dragon gem. So Raya has hers from Heart, and Tail is a desert at this point. There's a shipwreck
water's
there
all
with
dried
no
up.
water. There's like a stream of water going through, but that's where she finds Sisu. And the reveal is, because you didn't know, because I mentioned that Sisu is the smallest of the dragons and she's kind of like the outsider of the dragons. But we don't know that yet, because history has granted Sisu with this heroic status. She is the one
That saved everybody.
that saved everybody. So, but we realized that like her siblings are the ones that gave her for one reason or other, gave her the gem that they created to carry out their wishes. So Sisu is raised from this stream. We find out that it's Aquafina, who is
I got a very Roseanne Barr vibe from her at times. It was weird.
She's awesome.
But this character, yeah, this is where it kind of goes into Genie from Aladdin territory a little bit. This character is over the top, but you can't help but just absolutely love it.
right, and
Her character is great.
and you can't take your eyes off of Sisu either. A beautifully rendered dragon with the colors are just hypnotizing. So we find out that this is now going to become a quest.
Sisu, like literally, like one day has passed for Sisu.
Right, correct.
She
Yeah, she doesn't think any
realize
time
at
has
all.
gone on.
She's we did it. We did it. We,
Mhm.
my brothers and sisters did it, and then realize, Raya has to break down the fact that she broke the gem is broken. She goes, but we can fix it. She goes, but if you had a broken puppy, would it still be a puppy? Like, if you
Yeah.
only had a part of a puppy, we need all the pieces back. So yeah, this is where the quest kicks in, where they need to now go back and collect all these pieces.
Yeah, so they need to go to every land, and what Raya is thinking is she's going to have to steal the gem pieces from every single piece. So they've already gone to the farthest point. So to make their way back to Heart, they've got to go through every one of the other lands to get back to Heart. So, but they were already in Tail. So you're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. To get this gem piece is completely straight out of the opening scene of Raiders. It's like, throw me the whip, I'll give you the idol.
Pepito.
Well, she has to go through like a bunch of booby trapped areas because, just like the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he's going through the cave and the tunnel, and there's all these different things that you could potentially set off. And yeah, it's such a nicely done scene. But the sort of the great thing about the whole sequence is sort of how clueless Sisu is. Like, because Sisu is so trusting, it does not occur to her that there would be booby traps to hurt you.
Which is nice, because Raya is so untrusting.
Mm-hmm.
She's like questioning, she's now seeing all these people turn on, her dad is, for all intents and purposes, a stone statue. He's dead. So Sisu is just a I don't even know how to describe this character. It's just a free forming, blabbering, like just happy to be there kind of a thing. So, but we also get to see Namari again, because Namari's been tracking her
because she's got the map. She's stolen the map from Fang.
And apparently once you have a hairstyle, you just stick with it the rest of your life. So
it's a cool haircut.
Looks
good on her.
Jim and I used to work with somebody who had a haircut like that.
It's very harsh, so it really brings out what her character is meant to be, or is supposed to be.
Oh yeah, no, it says a lot about her character. Yeah.
What they have to do, as we said, they have to reassemble the gem. So they have to get all these pieces. So the piece that's in Tail is in the skeletal hand of a corpse that's there, a skeleton. And it's rigged to a booby trap. So they've got to, like in Raiders, they've got to counterweight
or Goonies,
the skeleton
for that matter.
hand to get the gem out. And what's revealed is that every piece of the gem gives Sisu a different ability that's kind of inherited from her siblings. And in this case,
which is really fun.
Yeah, she's able to shapeshift. So as soon as the gem is in their hands, she becomes human. And, as we said before, looks just like Aquafina.
Which is, so I'm halfway through this movie and I'm already like, pairing this up with The Last Unicorn is brilliant.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I mean, literally, there's so many parallels between these two movies. And especially when you get, I'm not going to ruin it, but when you get to the end of this movie, you're like, they straight up stole this from The Last Unicorn.
It's funny that you say that, because like when we were watching Raya, my son said, "You picked The Last Unicorn, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yep." And he goes, "How did you know?" I'm like, "I don't know."
You don't know. Sometimes you just get those vibes, right?
It's just because it had the word last. That's all.
Yeah, but it works so well together.
So Namari shows up, of course, conveniently just after Sisu turns into a human. So she doesn't realize that that's Sisu that she's looking at, just some random person.
Right.
That's with Raya. They manage to get out, and they set off the booby traps, which only slows Namari down. And so from that point on, Namari is chasing them as they're going through and collecting the gemstone pieces.
Yeah. The one thing we didn't mention too is that the Fang tribe, they ride like these battle cats, which are really kind of cool.
Yes.
So again.
And that kind of plays into the legend of Fang, that they're mean and their cats are mean.
Right.
When you first see like the depiction of Fang, it's like just regular cats that do like that claw
No.
camera, but they're actually big, huge battle cats.
So one of the ways they ultimately escape is they jump on the shrimporium.
Oh yes, we meet Captain Boone.
Captain Boone.
Or as he calls it, you mean Captain Poppinlock over there? That's the one thing I don't like with Disney. Even in this completely alien world, that they still have to put pop culture references in there.
Well, just the fact that they call themselves super fans of the dragon is very contemporary.
Little things like that, but whatever. Again, it's just a little nitpick.
So so they jump on the boat restaurant, the shrimp restaurant run by Boone, this like little kid who's lost his whole family. And Raya is really concerned about like Sisu revealing herself as a dragon because she just doesn't trust anybody, and she knows that she needs Sisu. Once they collect all the gem pieces, Sisu's the only one who can like do anything with that
Right.
magic. So she's very concerned that something might happen. So she keeps telling
Yes.
Sisu, like, just stay in your human form, like stay
Nope.
out of sight.
No.
So of course not, because Sisu trusts people.
And not only
Right,
that,
right.
like I said, she's just happy to be there, and she provide. She's a water dragon. I live it. I'm a really good swimmer. There's a whole line of jokes that she makes about being a good swimmer. She goes underwater, turns into the dragon, and speedboats, them out of there.
While doing so, she's still keeping her secret identity
Right.
secret.
She's underwater. Yeah.
But Raya is completely justified in mistrusting people.
Oh, hell yeah.
She's been bitten. She's been bitten, and she's trusted, and it got thrown up in her face, and now
will
she
again.
is. Yeah, and it will again.
And it will again.
So they go to Talon. Talon is their next stop.
This
Con
Which-
baby.
this is the craziest. Like in my wildest dreams, I couldn't have come up with something like this.
So Talon, everybody realizes that the Droon are afraid of water. So a lot of these communities have the water around themselves to protect themselves, and Talon is doing this. Their whole community are built on docks, so they're out above the water, so the Droon can't get to them. So the whole place looks like a big marketplace from what we see of it.
For the funny thing is that Raya says when she gets off the boat, like there's a town of like pickpockets, so like stay here because anything can be stolen. But then she brings the gem with her, which is like, why didn't you just leave it on the boat if you know that there are pickpockets? But then Raya falls for this con where there's like a little baby by herself crying, wah, 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 and she goes to help the baby. She's like, oh, where are your parents? And then while the baby's distracting her, these 3 monkeys take what's in her pack, which of course is the gem.
Yeah.
And the baby then like kicks her in the face and they all run away.
And they all run off. Yeah, full on karate chops her right in the kisses.
And she calls it Con Baby.
Con baby.
And from that point on, watching with the subtitles, that's what the baby is referred to, is Con Baby
funny.
Coos or Con Baby Cries.
I was gonna say because the baby doesn't really talk; it's just like gibberish.
Right, but
But this
you
is
do
such a
find
great chase scene.
Yes. I mean,
And
later
she's
you do find out that she has a
baby.
name,
Noi.
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 But yeah, pretty much she's Con Baby.
Yeah, this whole sequence is this baby with the monkeys is just, it's chaos. It's crazy. It is just like I've never seen anything like it, and I'm like, these so much fun.
But again, just like Tuk Tuk, just from a marketing perspective, like that these are the characters that Disney is going to market to the kids. These monkeys, the baby, and
Right.
Tuk Tuk. Those are going to be the best sellers by far out of the plushes and everything else that we're going to
I'll
see
buy
now.
a Tuk Tuk right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Take
and
my
then-
money, Disney. Take my money.
And of course, while Raya is chasing these naughty monkeys and naughty baby,
Naughty monkeys.
Sisu decides that she actually wants to not steal the gem, and she wants to get a gift and bring it to the leader to trade for the gem. So Boone tells her about credit.
Yeah, well, apparently he doesn't have any idea. Yeah, no, you don't need money. Just everything on credit. So there she is walking through the market with a giant pile. Oh, I'll take this as well. And immediately gets stopped by the mob.
Right, because that's not how credit works.
Correct.
You can't just take stuff. But then Sisu gets tricked because she's trusting. And in the meantime, Raya has worked something out with the Con Baby and Con Monkeys to have them distract the soldiers so that she can go in to get the gem. But it turns out the person she was looking for has turned to stone. And the person who has the gem is actually the old woman who is about to trick Sisu into going into a space with the Droon.
Now, this old woman is the worst character. She's the baddest character in this whole movie.
At
Even
first I'm
worse
like,
than
is that Betty
Namari and
White?
Fang.
Yeah, it was not.
She is heartless.
But
Well,
then, Raya ends up sweeping in. Sisu gets saved. Sisu still doesn't learn her lesson about how people are not trustworthy.
Yeah.
And they move on to the next land.
And she gets that piece, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and that's where she can turn to mist. Is that where the
Yes.
Yes.
So that's
she
how
has
they
the fog
evade.
power. That's how they
Yep.
escape. They
Yeah. So again, this is a neat, like each piece is imbuing her with a different power from one of her siblings. So it's kind of a cool thing. So off we go. We're out of Talon, and now we go to Spine. And this is where we meet Drax. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean Tong, voiced by Benedict Wong. And this character has the best lines in the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
He is straight up Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, but
no, he comes on to the screen as a very fearsome, scary character.
Yeah, he's a big monster of a guy with
he's a big monster of a guy. He's threatening torture when he captures our heroes. But this is before we realize that Tong is the only one in Spine, because everybody else is turned to stone. And he is the last of his people. Yep. But he's built up a legend around himself anyway, because everybody's afraid of Spine. But he's in fact the only one.
I would have been afraid too. He was very imposing.
So he eventually becomes an ally of our heroes, and he joins.
And he even, we mentioned Lord of the Rings before, but he literally calls themselves a fellowship. He says, "I too wish to join this fellowship at Droon Kickery." Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm in.
So getting that piece is not that hard, and this piece gives Sisu the power of rain. So now we have the pieces from Tail, Talon, and Spine, and the only one left is Fang.
Fang. So now we must go back and we must confront Namari.
Yeah.
And she is the key.
Right. And while they have she has a confrontation with Namari, and Sisu just can't leave Raya behind, even though Raya's job is to distract Namari so everyone else can get back to the boat. And Sisu shows up, and Namari sees her as the dragon. And that's when, you realize, if you didn't already, that they're moving toward a Moana type ending here, not where like people are going to like punch each other and sword fight. That's, not how the quote unquote villain's going to be defeated. Like the villain's going to be defeated by, compassion, because Namari is very moved by the sight of Sisu.
Yeah. I mean, they're very much, two sides of the same coin.
Right.
They really are, they there's a reason that when they were little and they connected.
Mm-hmm.
So they still have that bond.
But then when Sisu is revealed, and then they go back to the boat, and Tong's like, "Why didn't you tell us that, she was the dragon?"
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But then they all agree, they all like make up a plan to try to steal the last bit of the gem so that they can save everybody, because they all say, we have a stake in this too. Like we lost people too, and we also want to get our family members back. So they go to, confront Namari, and Cece's like, "Let's give her a gift."
Yeah. Let's just give her a gift. And like, that's not how this works. But that's exactly how it works. Well, kind of. But...
Right.
So she does. She returns the pendant.
She returns the pendant to try to get her out, and Namari shows up. Seems like she's going to give her the gem. Sisu's like, "Yeah, like my plan worked." And then Namari pulls a crossbow on her.
Yep.
"Sorry, I need to take all the gem pieces and the dragon."
Yeah, double-crossed again.
And Raya's pretty angry about this, obviously. And then she tries to knock the arrow away, and because of her actions, the arrow actually flies into Sisu.
Over the cliff the dragon goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately the water is drained. And the Droon come back on force.
So Raya, runs into the city to confront Namari because she's really mad now, and she needs to
nice fight. Yeah.
To take somebody down. But in the meanwhile, the rest of her little troop are actually using their gem pieces to save people in Fang from the Droon, because the gem can deflect them, kind of like keeps them away.
Right.
And she looks over and she realizes what they're doing, and she realizes it's stupid to stay there and fight when there's people to be saved. And eventually Namari comes to the same conclusion. And just as they've gotten everybody out of the city, the ground kind of collapses and they all fall underground, where they're surrounded by drone, and the gem is starting to like flicker and die because Sisu's dying, and
All is lost.
yeah, and then you have to have this moment where all these people from all these different lands, because they all come from a different land, have to trust each other in order to save the world. And that's what Sisu wanted.
Yeah, all along. That's what her dad wanted.
But I do think it's nice, and again, I call this like the Moana type ending, because you have sort of a similar end of Moana, where you realize like it's not about fighting and forcing, it's about like compassion and kind of realizing, that kind of everybody has their own story, because all these people are motivated by the same thing, right? They want to be happy, they want to be safe, they want to be prosperous, and it's hard to trust your happiness and safety and prosperity to other people,
It's a message for all of us, my friends.
right? To come together as a community. But they do, and they save the world.
Yes, and Raya completely overcomes her trust issues because she actually sacrifices herself, trusting Namari.
Right.
Yep.
She's
She
the
hands
first.
over. She hands over that gem and lets the Droon turn her to stone, trusting that Namari is going to do the right thing, and she does.
She does. She's got no other choice, really.
Right?
She's going to turn to dust herself, and then that's to be the end of it.
But she could have insisted that Namari be the one to bend first. So it's very important that Raya is the one.
Right. This is
who makes that
this is her
decision.
journey, that she needs to overcome this fault that she had. I don't know if you even consider it a fault. It's a character trait that
To
you've
overcome
learned because,
human nature, to overcome
right,
everyone's
because I
human
know I
nature.
don't trust
Yeah.
a lot of people either. That takes a lot. But yeah, Namari comes through.
Because it's kind of beaten over your head in the beginning. Humans being what they are, things could not remain well, and things could not remain happy. So
that's also why we only had one unicorn left.
That is true. That is true. But at the end, we do get the idyllic community and the dragons. Even
the dragons come back full on over the waterfall fashion, and there's a lot of them. It's not like 5; it's like a couple hundred.
Right. Well, the 5 were just
her siblings,
her and her siblings.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the nice thing is even, and again, these are insights into like Namari and some of these other tribes, which are at one point when Namari and the Fang, they're following Raya in the group, and they go through the fields where all the petrified dragons are. And they're revered. They honor them.
They don't run through.
They don't run through it. They walk
right.
through it. It's just, the dragons bring peace. Yes, and I think the first thing that Tong says when he comes back, it is good. Oh, when Sisu comes back, he's like, it's good to smell your dragon breath stench again, or something to that effect.
And of course, we see Chief Benja restored.
Yeah, we got to go back to Dad. These movies play me.
They're designed to do that.
Of course they are.
You want to overcome it. You want to think that you're somehow better than that, but
not only does Benja see Raya, but he sees all the people, approaching and actually now coming together again. Yep. So they've learned their lesson. Kumandra is won by the end.
I want to say though, normally in an animated movie, I'm like, oh man, like why is this going on so long? This was the opposite, where I was like, they could have added 10 extra minutes to this, like no fault. They had, because there were so many things to do, they moved through all the other lands really quickly.
Yeah.
And I almost would have liked to have seen a few extra minutes to like really sort of seep into the culture of each place that they went to. This ends up being an hour and 37 minutes before the credits. There's a lot of credits.
There's a lot of credits. Yeah.
Well, again, that's
So the movie itself is an hour and 52 minutes, correct?
Right, but because we paused it to see, we were like, really, the movie's over? And it was like when the cast credits started running, it's an hour and 37 minutes.
Wow.
So the actual story, I think they could have added a few minutes.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned
the way that I normally feel.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because going into it, I looked at the time, And I said, that's long for an animated movie, an
Mhm.
hour and 52 minutes. And then watching it, and then it was over. I'm like, that just blew by. And then
Yeah.
20 minutes later, the credits.
20
are
minutes of
still
credit,
running.
it's still going.
Yeah. But some of the Pixar movies are like an hour and 45, an hour and 50 minutes. And you're saying like why are they like forcing the story to be this
Yeah.
long?
Mhm.
Which is this, I think, is the opposite, where there was a lot of story.
It touches all the feels, just like a good Disney movie should.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the upper echelon, I would say, of even this ranks among the classics. Already.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah. Like we could stop right now. I could go upstairs and watch it again and probably
Really
catch
engaging
things I didn't.
characters, really likable characters. The voice actors are all spot on. The
Spot
animation
on.
is amazing.
Yeah. No. And like I
And
said,
the story
there's
is great. It's
Yeah,
a great
I mean,
story.
you know, it touches on so many Black Panther, you know, Dora the Explorer, you know, Lord of the Rings, like all these things you see, you're like bits and pieces of are derivative, but together it just becomes something of its own.
I think that's why it works so much, is because it's a familiar quest story. You know, you're
Yeah.
on the journey with the characters.
You know, it's interesting because several years ago I read this book that was written by the former editor of The Atlantic. It was called Hitmakers. And I think it was called Hitmakers. Anyway, fact check. He said the reason why things get remade or like seem like they're getting like taking familiar elements and like just making a little change is that like what makes something popular is that people want something familiar with a gentle touch of surprise. That's his exact terms. And I think that that is really true for this, where there's enough familiar elements that you don't feel completely out of your depth,
Mhm.
but there's enough that is new to you to make it feel really fresh.
I never got the impression that this was derivative. Even though I was recognizing things, I never felt that it was
Yeah, it's
derivative.
in a fresh package. It really is. Like you said, it's gorgeous to look at. You can definitely get lost in it.
So I
I
think
loved it.
buckets are going to be generous.
I loved it. I am very
right?
generous. I'm going a solid 4 3/4.
I'm going to go 4 1/4. I think 4 1/4.
Yeah, I think I'll say the same, like 4 1/4. It was really good. I would definitely watch it again.
Definitely worth the premium price. If you're on the fence about it, watch it.
Yeah, make some popcorn. Good to go.
Yeah.
It is
All right.
popcorn worthy.
Speaking of popcorn, let's go to the concession stand, and we'll be right back with the last dragon. The last unicorn.
And now, before the next show starts, let's enjoy an intermission. You'll find our snack bar chock full of good things to eat and drink. Tasty, tempting hot dogs, thirst-quenching soft drinks, fresh, crunchy popcorn, a complete assortment of delicious candy, and a full line of cigarettes. You've plenty of time, so visit the snack bar now. A tasty treat will double your enjoyment of the show. For your convenience, we shall keep you informed of the remaining intermission time.
Okay, we are back, and we are talking The Last Unicorn. Now, this is a movie that is near and dear to many people's hearts.
Oh, yeah. I posted something on Instagram when I was watching this. I took a screen grab and I just asked, you know, who here loves this movie? And I got quite a response. So it is a beloved movie.
So what are our own personal histories with this film? I can start by saying that I never saw this as a child. I don't know why. Maybe it never made the HBO rounds, or if it did, I just wasn't around when it was on. But I have only ever seen this as an adult.
Oh, really? See,
Yeah.
I saw this as a kid, and loved it. I remember my mom must have taped it off of. My mom loved the VCR. You know, she would
It's a
tape
beautiful thing.
anything. She taped it off some channel, and I used to watch this over and over. And then I read the book as a teenager, and I've read the book several times again.
Peter
since
Beagle, right?
then. Yes, Peter S.
Yeah.
Beagle. And yeah, for me, it's just always been part of my life. Like I almost don't even remember my life before there was The Last Unicorn.
Interesting. This is like one of those animated art movies I probably saw in college. There was a guy on the second or third floor. He had a state-of-the-art surround system, and that's where I saw Nausicaa of the Wind, who the same animation company
Yeah,
did
that's
this.
was very
But a
interesting.
lot
to
of
read.
those, what we used to refer to as Japanimation, movies that I never had any access to. This is the type of movie we would sit down in a college dorm and watch from beginning to end and just be in awe of it.
You say your wife loves this movie. Do you know
Yes.
what her history is with it? She see it as a kid?
Yeah, probably on HBO though. I don't.
Mhm.
They weren't really movie going, so that's probably something she watched on HBO.
Yeah, my wife has a story. She told me that she actually won tickets to see this from a local radio station, and she remembers going to see it with her friend, and that she was a fan ever since.
One of our listeners on Instagram said he saw this in the drive-in as a kid, and I asked him what it was paired up with. Secret of Nim.
That's great.
That's a great pairing. That's awesome. That's like a double whammy.
The thing is when I was a kid, and I've talked about this before, even like through most of my adolescence and into adulthood, there were just not a lot of fantasy movies out there. There's always a lot of science fiction, but there was just a general kind of feeling that you couldn't do fantasy well on screen. So I think that if you loved fantasy when you were, at any age, this is the kind of thing that really becomes a touchstone for you, because there just wasn't a lot of stuff that was available, plus it was inspired by an extremely beloved book, and the screenplay is done by the author. So it actually stays very close to the plot of the book. There's a few things that are different. There's a few scenes that are taken out, but the great thing is that it really retains so much of Peter Beagle's dialogue and what I think of as like his sort of quirky humor. A lot of the lines in this will really take you by surprise. There's a great line when Rook is taking all the people around Mommy Fortuna's carnival and, introducing the various animals, and he's talking about the dragon, and he's, listing off all the qualities of the dragon. And the last two things he says are speaks 17 languages badly and is subject to gout. To me, that's just like really indicative of Peter Beagle's humor, that kind of like quirky, unexpected humor. And at the same time, this is a very dramatic and beautiful film that's ultimately about love and regret.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And again, we were talking about the casting in Raya. Extremely inspired casting all across the board.
This is star-studded.
Yeah,
and unbelievable, the names that you see on that flash by in the opening credits.
For those who are unfamiliar with The Last Unicorn, just very quickly, this unicorn lives in a forest, and two humans come to hunt there, and they realize it's a unicorn's forest, and they decide not to hunt there because they won't get anything. And one of them calls out to her, keep your forest safe because you're the last unicorn.
Right? Isn't that's a heck of a way to find out you're the last of your race. It's like, crap, I was looking to meet next week.
A very wizened guy, because only one of them realizes that because there's like an older guy and a younger guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the one that's knowing, and he kind of, almost bows to the unicorn, like in deference, like, okay, we're leaving. But, you're the last one. Keep yourself safe.
Right. So she kind of really doubts this. She's like, humans are not so smart. Like, they don't necessarily know what they're looking at all the time. So that can't be true. So she encounters a butterfly played by Robert Klein. Again, like, they just get really great voice actors.
Yeah,
like,
this is a
even
fun little character.
In little roles. And he's being very silly, the way butterflies are.
And he's singing like about 50 different songs to her, like lines from all these
again, there's a bunch of pop culture references.
And it sounds like he's like got a Broadway quality voice, which I would never thought of Robert Klein.
Right. And the great thing about it, I think this characterization again that Peter Beagle's come up with is this idea that butterflies flit from thing to thing, right? They can't settle.
I can't. Yeah.
So he's characterized that by having the butterfly like jump from like a piece of poetry to a song to a quote from a play, all around. And the unicorn saying, "Have you ever seen anyone like me?" And the butterfly like just won't answer her question. And then finally, when she's ready to dismiss him, he says, "I know you," and tells her, that she's a unicorn. And she's like, "Great, you know what I am. Have you ever seen anyone else like me?" And he says, "They passed down all the roads long ago, and the Red Bull ran behind them and covered their footprints." And then she's like, "What's the Red Bull? Like,
Red
what
Bull
are you
gives you
talking about?"
wings.
So, but again, he goes back to being the silly butterfly, but he does give her a tiny hint.
Just a little bit of exposition.
So it talks about the king is in his counting house counting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, seems like something silly, but the king is in his counting house counting out his unicorns.
Yeah. One more to go.
But when you're watching this for the first time, this is not the first time I've seen it, but I can imagine watching this for the first time, you don't know what to take seriously or not when this butterfly is talking.
Butterfly, right.
Just like the unicorn, because, okay, all the stuff that he's saying, does this mean anything now? The king is in his counting house. But it does. It certainly does.
Yep. So,
and the animation in this is just as impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to say that one of the things I really, really like is that the opening credits are an homage to the tapestries.
Yep, unicorn tapestries.
That inspired Peter Beagle to write this in the first place.
Genius. Absolutely genius. Most people know what we're talking about. The unicorn, the famous one in like a little round garden or whatever. And it's all kind of animated to look like those tapestries. It doesn't match the rest of the movie, but it is a brilliant way to kind of
my wife was like, "Those are the tapestries, the tapestries."
Yep, at the cloisters they are. And he's talked about how when he was a little boy, he used to beg his mom to take him to see those tapestries at the cloisters, and how even though he would always end up having a bad day afterwards because he was asthmatic and it's very dusty.
What happens when you go to an old museum?
He said that he started writing this book and he actually stopped, and his wife encouraged him to kind of keep going forward. He's only in his 20s. This is an incredibly mature work for a young writer in a lot of ways. But so the unicorn decides, she is going to have to go out and see if she's the last unicorn. And then you have kind of a quick montage of like some seasons going by while you listen to some America music. And she falls asleep on the side of the road because the unicorn, like Sisu, is still kind of trusting.
Yeah.
Trusting that like nothing bad's going to happen to her, or maybe that her magic will protect her.
Which it does almost in a way, because people can't see her.
Right.
As a unicorn, unless they're knowing in some way or magical.
But that's not because of her magic. It's because people don't believe in unicorns. They just think that she's a white mare. So Mommy Fortuna comes along and she runs this little carnival where she basically creates illusions out of existing animals to make them pretend, to make them look like mythical creatures for people who come and pay to look at them. But she has managed to capture a real unicorn, and she has captured a real harpy.
Harpies, that needs a support brawl like you wouldn't believe.
This harpy is frightening.
There's some disturbing visuals in this, yeah.
But you were talking about some surprising lines in this. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites was when they go to the Seder, and Rook says, "Stay back, ladies. You've got a Seder here."
Yes.
which is just a broken down monkey.
Yeah.
Yes. This actor who calls himself Brother Theodore plays Rook, and you may have been familiar with his voice already because he played Gollum in the Rankin Bass animated Hobbit, and he's also a member of the weird, scary family in The Burbs, if you remember. Yeah.
A Burbs callback. Look at that. we still haven't reviewed it yet, but we'll get there.
He's another one who has a great voice, who's like really well suited to this kind of dullard character. And then the other member of this troupe is Schmendrick, the magician. And
voiced by Alan Arkin, which Alan Arkin to me is this curmudgeon old man. So to hear this voice come out of this character, it is like when I saw his name in the credits, like you're like, oh, he must play like maybe he plays the king or something. No, he's playing this kid.
Well, I mean, it was 1982.
I
so,
know,
you
but
know,
still.
Yeah, he doesn't sound old. He does.
No.
The voice does fit the character. The last of the Red Hot Swamis.
Right, but it was 40 years ago.
I know.
But actually, side note, Alan Arkin was the commencement speaker at my graduation from college. Yes. Peter Beagle has told this story that Schmendrick is a Yiddish word that literally means a man out of his depth.
Huh. Schmendrick.
So, which is kind of a funny thing. And Schmendrick is out of his depth.
Yeah, basically.
For most of this
very
movie.
much so.
Because he has magical power, but a part of it has been constrained because he doubts himself, and because he tries to force it to do things that, you know, it doesn't want to do. So when he tries to save the unicorn, he tries all these spells to get her out of the cage, and none of them work. And then finally he says, "My dear, you deserve the services of a great wizard, but I'm afraid you'll have to make do with the aid of a second-rate pickpocket." He has the keys, which have been in his pocket all along.
The whole time.
And I always enjoyed when he tried to put the key in, that the lock has Mommy Fortuna's voice and makes fun of him for being a crap wizard. So he frees the unicorn, and of course the unicorn can't just leave all these poor animals behind in the cages. So she goes around to free them, and then wisely or maybe unwisely, she also goes to free the harpy, who immediately repays her by trying to kill her.
Thanks.
Mommy Fortuna comes out at that point and sort of willingly throws herself in the harpy's path, which is sort of interesting because she had always said she knew the harpy would kill her someday.
Might as well be today.
You know, just for, you know, the insult of holding her. But, you know, now Schmendrick and the unicorn are going along to try to find Haggard, which Schmendrick is the one who's told the unicorn a little bit about this idea that the Red Bull belongs to the King Haggard, and so they have to go to this crumbling kingdom by the sea to see if they can find out anything about the unicorns. And along the way, they encounter some bandits.
Robin Hood?
Not Robin Hood.
Captain Cully. Captain Cully. Yeah. And Molly Grew. Molly Grew sounds like she's right out of a Nick Cave song. Sobbin' Molly Grew. I can picture her being a character in Murder Ballads.
But again, like, great voices. Captain Cully, played by Keenan Wynn, and Molly Grew by Tammy Grimes, who has just one of my favorite voices of all time, period. And Schmendrick does some magic to get himself out of the situation, makes Robin Hood appear.
Wasn't it really the unicorn that was doing that?
No, he makes
really did conjure them. Oh.
He makes Robin Hood appear.
I got the impression that somehow the unicorn was helping him out.
She was observing.
Okay, he gets captured.
He gets tied to the tree.
There's some very disturbing visuals going on here. And I go back to the the listener who said that he watched this paired up with The Secrets of Nim, and I'm just like, boy, those two movies must have just been nightmare inducing as a little kid.
I
But
think
you think this as an adult when you're looking at some of these visuals, but I don't think it really hits kids,
No.
Like, all right, so it's funny, like he's in the bosom of this tree, like your aunt that smothers you,
Yes,
with
correct.
kisses.
Oh no, it's like Mrs. Garrett. Girls.
Yeah.
but the interesting thing too is that of course people thought then and still think today like animation is for kids. But The Last Unicorn is not a book for kids.
No.
And the themes of this movie, which again, like the movie hews pretty closely to the book, they're not for kids. This is not like a nice happy ending kind of story. This is like a very mature story with a lot of things that are not really comprehensible to kids. When I was very young, I remember always being sad that she turned back into the unicorn at the end. That made me sad, because I was like, oh, but she should be with Lear,
She should be with him.
But when you're an adult, that is how, like, that's the real end of the story, and that's how it has to be. So I do think it's a mistake to think of this as a kid's film, because it's not a kid's story.
No, but like I said, a lot of young kids were exposed to it.
Yes.
Yes, and a
Because
lot of people
think-
love this, because of
Right.
seeing
Yeah,
it
and
as
I
kids.
think as a child, when you're exposed to something, sometimes it sticks with you better than if they just placate to you and then just give you like this is like, because kid stories are not meant to scare. They're not meant, but yeah, this is like something you're like, holy crap. So
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about scariness necessarily, because I've always argued that one of the reasons why Roald Dahl is popular is because he never shies away from like the terror in the world. The kids know that the world is scary. Adults don't do them any favors by pretending it's not. I was thinking more of like thematically, kind of like the themes of love and regret. Like that's not something you really grasp
no,
when you're
yeah, I guess
a
not.
kid.
No.
And the character of Molly Grew, especially, the scene when she says, confronts Schmendrick in the woods and she sees the unicorn and she starts screaming, where have you been?
Yes, she's more angry than anything
Right.
else.
and
So again,
where-
we were talking about the similarities between this and Raya, and there's so much going on here.
Mhm.
It's not to the extent, but look at Namari. The difference here is Molly Grew is like, I should have seen you when I was a young girl.
Right.
Why are you coming to me now?
No,
yeah, like it always brings tears to my eyes when she says, where were you when I was new?
Yeah.
Because, and Peter Beagle talked about this, how he says he had no idea how he managed to write this character when he was like a 20 something man. He's like, I had no right to write this character, but I did.
But somehow she came out of me.
Because she is a middle-aged woman whose life did not turn out at all the way she thought it would. And now when like she feels like she's been used up and dried up by life,
Now the magic comes. Yeah.
now the magic is here. Now,
yeah, thanks for mutton.
and you really feel like that again, like sort of that pain and that regret and that like feeling of thinking like my life was over and now there's this thing, but like, am I even capable of feeling the same degree of wonder I would have felt when I was 15 or 16, or whatever. So she's just such a great character to come in at this point. And so now the three of them are going to Hagrid's castle because Molly's not leaving the unicorn. That's that.
Yeah.
Of course, as they approach the castle, the Red Bull appears. And the Red Bull chases the unicorn, and Molly tells Schmendrick, do something. And he says, what can I do? Do you think the Red Bull likes card tricks? Again, like just always these kind of wonderful little like flashes of humor, I think that would make otherwise a very heavy story. They make a story that would otherwise be very like too heavy, kind of more bearable. Schmendrick says, magic do as you will, and the magic turns the unicorn into a human. And it's a solution for sure.
That Red Bull's like, wait a minute, where'd that unicorn go? It's hiding behind that human. Nope.
And the
Alright.
bull leaves her
Okay.
alone because he thinks she's not a unicorn, and it is a way for them to get into the castle. You know, Hagrid does recognize her.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he does.
Well, he's a little obsessed. Can we all agree?
Yes.
This is where we meet his magician, who is Paul Frees, who does the voice of the Burgermeister Meisterburger.
Paul
From all
Frees is our ghost host.
Yes, he is.
Mhm.
He's also the voice of the tree, and that
And
tree, interestingly enough, was always wrongly credited to an actress that was cut from the movie, but that tree was Paul
Really?
Frees. Yeah.
Huh.
And he's also the cat.
And he's also the cat, yes.
So bringing up Burgermeister Meisterburger, I had no clue that this was directed by Rankin and Bass.
It's produced by them.
Produced by them.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
But
and
yeah, the
once you-
animation style is completely in line with
Yes,
that type
correct.
of
some
animation
of
in those
the character
specials.
designs. Yep, you see them. Yep.
You know, and then you look at The Hobbit and The Return of the King, those animated, and it's very similar as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually love it when Hagrid tells Mabrook, the wizard, to leave, and Lear says, "Come on, old man, I'll write you a reference." You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. We got ourselves a new magician. You're out.
And again, like, really fun thing is that Jeff Bridges, who's perfect as Lear, he asked to be in this movie.
Yes, I did read that.
He petitioned to be in this movie. He's like,
Mhm.
I gotta be part of this. I gotta be part of this.
Same year as Starman. 82?
No.
Starman's
81?
later, right?
84
This came out in
84?
82.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should probably listen to our episodes more.
You know, it's
That's Lear.
astounding how many like really big names are in this film.
Yeah.
Because
We didn't even mention Mia
Lee,
Farrow, who does the unicorn's voice.
and she's perfect.
Yeah.
Completely perfect. She has this really wonderful like combination of sort of strength and vulnerability that she can put into her voice. Christopher Lee
Yeah.
as Haggard.
It's Haggard.
I can't imagine anybody else being Haggard, you know, with that voice.
With that gravelly, intoning voice. What I thought was very cool was that, you know, usually these voices are done in isolation when the actors record them, but apparently a lot of the actors were together in the studio.
Which
recording
is
this
almost
movie.
unheard of, right? You
Yeah.
want individual tracks. But that's, you know, you get the interplay. You're not just reading a line of dialogue. You're interacting with another actor. So
And Haggard, talk about, you know, another downbeat character. He has no joy. Even his adopted son, you know, he brought me joy for a little bit. I guess it was joy.
that's most kids.
But that wore off very quickly. So the only thing that brings him joy that we find out later is to chase and imprison unicorns.
That's a really niche market there. Like, you know what's gonna make me happy? Yeah.
He's got a unicorn fetish, apparently.
Yeah, he definitely has a unicorn fetish. Too bad he didn't have access to eBay.
Mm.
He could just be buying that stuff left and right.
Well, he says, you know, that every time he sees them, he remembers when he was young and he first saw them. And, you know, nothing makes him happy except their shining and their grace.
So let's capture them and imprison
So
them.
maybe it's a good thing that Molly didn't see them when she was young, or she'd be holding them in the ocean at this point.
No,
I'm with you. I'm with you, Haggard.
Molly would never.
Yes. But
Um,
meanwhile, the prince is like, he's all gaga for Lady Amalfia.
mhm.
You know what's interesting to me is the unicorn was never named until she was human.
No, I know, until she turns human, and then he calls her Amalfia.
One of the trappings of being a human being, a name.
And then
but-
because she's human, she's starting to forget her unicornness. She's starting to forget why she's there.
And you even see the markings on her head start to go away.
And she starts to fall in love with Lear too. And that, you know,
Yeah.
now it's like become a real problem. Haggard says love has slowed you down.
I was mad that he went out and killed that dragon just to try and impress her, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't want any of that."
Did
I'm
you
like,
hear
"That's a waste
Godzilla?
of it.
Did you hear
Waste of a
Godzilla
dragon."
in the roar of the dragon?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, right before he
It's like
slapped his head
I
off.
wonder if they made a deal with Toho to get that noise.
We should have looked in the credits.
Yeah.
Yes. And at one point, they even lock lips, and you're like, "Oh man, she's a horse, dude."
It's
She's
going to
not
be
a horse.
really awkward.
That's gonna come back.
It's going to be
don't
really
you?
awkward.
But yeah, so they, eventually get to this point where they find out where the Red Bull is, and they're, Schmendrick and Molly have been slowly trying to figure things out while Amalthea wanders around looking confused, and
Yeah.
kissing Lear. And it's very interesting how, like, because as a unicorn, she's very sure of herself. She doesn't question her decisions. She's never unsure, but as a human, she's constantly unsure. And it is a sign of like how much has been taken from her, when she's put in this human form. She doesn't know where she belongs. She doesn't know what she's supposed to do. And so she, in a way, she kind of latches onto Lear as a compass, that gives her a direction. Okay, I love Lear.
Thankfully, he's a decent guy.
They figure it out. They go down and have an altercation with the skull, the very rude skull.
You gotta love alcoholic skeletons.
So he tells them, they have to like walk through time, which is like they literally have to walk through the clock to find the Red Bull. And he says, a clock is just numbers and springs, pay it no mind, which I always loved the idea of like that.
It's a portal of some sort.
Yeah. And in they go.
Because the wardrobe was already taken, by the way.
Yeah. And of course Haggard shows up just as they're trying to go in there. And Schmendrick holds him off while everyone else runs in. By the way, what was Lear doing? Did he just walk past his dad, like having a sword fight with Schmendrick? Because he comes in after Molly and Amalthea. Schmendrick somehow manages to get away, and then Haggard, in a fit of pique, destroys the whole clock. So now they're stuck inside this cavern, and the only way out is to go past the Red Bull, who, by the way, has figured out that Amalthea is a unicorn.
He had plenty of time to sit around mulling that. Go, wait a minute. There was a unicorn, then there wasn't a unicorn, but then there's a woman. I've been duped. He wasn't the smartest Red Bull. Let's put it that way.
And then they do, tell everything to Lear. They're like, look, she's not a human. And then she's like, I am a human, and I love you. I want to stay with you. But that can't happen because she's still got to save the unicorns. That's what she came to do. So there's a big fight with the Red Bull, and Schmendrick turns her back into
The unicorn.
the unicorn. And Lear actually dies for a little bit. For a little while.
Oops. That's all right.
For a few minutes.
Yeah.
Trying to protect her from the bull. And she frees the unicorns, and they all run loose. And Haggard's whole castle collapses because apparently it was just being held up by
by unicorn artwork.
his joy in seeing the unicorns. And now that they are gone,
he had no joy.
Everything that he is crumbled into the sea.
And again, right back to Raya with the dragons coming up over the waterfalls. I mean, this is exactly what you get, all the unicorns being freed from the ocean.
Yep. And Amalthea brings Lear back to life.
Yeah. But Schmendrick, was it Schmendrick that said there are no happy endings because nothing ever ends?
Because
Nothing ever ends.
And I'm like, that's pretty profound.
Well, at that, and there's another line that he has at the very end when the unicorn comes back to say goodbye to Schmendrick, and she says, "You're a true magician now. Like, are you happy?" And he says, "Men don't always know when they're happy." But I think so.
I think so. I'll get back to you on that one. Yeah.
And it's just the way that he says it, where he's, you can sort of, I think you really feel the profundity of that, that people really don't know when they're happy. They don't know how to value what they have when they have
No,
it.
it's all in hindsight. It's like, I thought I was miserable back then, but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But she did it. She saved the unicorns, and there are unicorns in the world again. She's not the last. And now she can go home to her forest and keep her animals safe.
Yeah.
But she now knows human regret,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
Don't we all?
Yep, because she will always regret Lear,
Could she have turned him into a unicorn? I don't think
No,
so.
because he is a human.
Well,
And
Tom Hanks went off with Daryl Hannah at the end of
That is
Mhm.
End of
true.
Splash, right?
That is true.
I think because the message
Welcome
here
to-
is sort of about like the fundamental nature
Yeah.
of these beings,
Like I said, I know I own this on DVD. I just couldn't find it anywhere. So it is available on Amazon Prime for free. If anybody wants to go and check it out.
And
If
also,
you've never seen it.
if you've
or
never
if you
seen it,
have.
but also like if you've never read the book, you should read it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book, just a really beautifully written book. And I think you do get a little sense of that in the film because again, Peter Beagle wrote the screenplay and it's his words. It's just a very, very beautifully written novel, and it's worth checking out.
Animation wise, I mean, it's definitely unique. It's got a very stylized opening, like we talked about the tapestries and whatnot, but the backgrounds, the graphics. And the one interesting thing is when she's a unicorn, well, even when she's human, like she's never drawn with a hard black edge. She's always full color rendered outline. So that kind of adds to the ethereal feel of the character. And she, the very, very thin legs, a very stylized unicorn with these thin legs that almost look frail, adds to her kind of mystique to me that, she's otherworldly almost.
Yeah.
Because it's not a horse. She's got almost like a lion tail, not like a horse tail. So
Right.
Beautiful eyes. And like you said, Mia Farrow just out of the park with the voice work, bringing this character. Yeah, I was very happy to watch this again.
It's amazing actually to like I said, just to hear all the voices in this film. I mean, we think about films now, we're like, oh, they have like 2 or 3 big names in them, and we think it's a
Right.
star-studded cast. This is like
Right.
an actual
Yes.
star-studded cast.
But no one's over. They're not like they all fit perfectly.
They're
Mhm.
yes, they're
It's
playing to
not
their
like
characters.
someone's being bombastic and whatnot. No, they perfectly fit.
And you were talking about the beautiful animation done by Topcraft. You'd mentioned
Yep.
before they went on to do Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind, and core members of Topcraft formed Studio Ghibli. So there's that connection
There you go.
as well.
That's some. That's a serious pedigree right there.
All started with Frosty's Winter Wonderland and
Yes.
Frosty the Snowman, because there is at the same, this is a very specific style that are a hallmark of these Rankin Bass specials, and then later The Hobbit, Return of the King. It's almost like
It's a house style.
it's sense memory.
it's-
Like you recognize this. It's like ingrained in you, the style of this animation, because it's not like a typical anime. It's got its own thing going on.
Right.
But in The Last Unicorn, it kind of it transcends that, and it is so beautiful. I loved watching it on the Blu-ray. The picture was gorgeous.
Oh, I can imagine.
It
Yeah.
was flawless.
Yeah. You know what it kind of reminded me of a little bit was your Jack and the Beanstalk, which was each character kind of had like its own style. Like when you get to Captain Callie and his
Yes.
group, like they are completely different looking design wise, massive heads compared to, especially like Schmendrick. He's like this tiny little head character.
It's funny you say that, because Christina probably knows this from looking at some of the history of this. But some of these characters were rendered or designed in America, so there's a real difference between the ones that were designed in Japan and the ones designed in America. Like Rook is an example of an American design character that looks so different than what else is in the film.
Very interesting.
But we
Very
talked
cool.
about America, which is very bizarre. Like,
it's a
Even looking at the bonus features, they didn't really explain how the group America got involved in the soundtrack. But the songs were written by Jimmy Webb, who is a very famous songwriter who did Up, Up and Away and My Beautiful Balloon. Wichita lineman MacArthur Park he wrote, and he wrote the songs in Last Unicorn, but didn't perform them. They got the Horse with No Name America to do them. But it's funny. My wife says, I know these songs inside and out when I hear this thing come on. Doesn't mean I like them particularly.
Correct.
But I know them.
I know them.
I think the only song that really fits is like the opening theme.
The theme, yes.
Music is, the instrumental music is fine. But yeah, the actual songs in the film are not really necessary for your understanding of the film. It's weird that they included them, but whatever. It's part of the experience.
It is. Yep. Agreed. Yep.
And it's funny that one of the things that Peter S. Beagle says in the documentary, that Rankin and Bass were pretty much the last ones that they went
to. Didn't read that. He wanted nothing to do with them.
He wanted nothing to do with them because he had hated everything that he had seen, all those holiday specials.
You curmudgeon.
He said he did not want, and this is a quote, Frosty the Flipping Snowman.
That's what he got.
So he was very wary, to say the least, but he has come to love this movie. And he goes to the screenings. There's one of the features had him at a screening saying how much he loved the movie and he thought it was a classic.
It is indeed.
A classic. Definitely.
And as you were saying, Jeff, before, he wrote the screenplay to the animated Bashki Lord of the Rings. And Warner Brothers actually had an option for The Last Unicorn. And they were waiting to see how Lord of the Rings performed before they took the option. And it didn't perform well, so it fell away from Warner Brothers. So, but who knows what it could have been if it was in somebody else's hands. So it's for the best, right?
Yes, indeed.
For the best. And another interesting facet is that released in November of 1982, the distributor that they got, because again, they couldn't get any big name distributors. They got a very small mom and pop distributor. I think it opened in 600 theaters. The distributor went bankrupt, I think, on its second weekend.
Oh, geez.
So, and it's distributors that report the box office figures to Variety and all the other outlets. And because the distributor didn't exist anymore, they couldn't really, and they can't to this day say how much conclusively that it did at the box office. But, they've got reports that it was playing, because the other thing is that because the distributor dissolved, the theaters didn't have to pay back any of the profits. So they played it for months and months in some theaters.
Wow.
And people kept going to see it. So the word is, what people think is that this did much better than is reported, box office wise.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Very interesting.
But there you have it.
There you go.
What kind of buckets would we give The Last Unicorn?
Sentimentality is involved, but I would say like 4.5.
4.5.
As an adult, I do think I could do without the songs in the film. But other than that, I think it's very well done, and I think it hews very closely to the book.
I think I would go higher if I had seen it as a kid and it, I had that connection to it. But as it is, I'm going to go equal with Raya. I'm going to go 4.25.
I'll go a solid 4. I think it's a well-made movie. It stands the test of time. America songs or not, it is what it is. But it's beautiful to look at. Completely different level as from a Raya. But it doesn't take away from it at all.
All right, with that,
solid. That's a solid recommendation across the board,
it is
kids.
Solid for both of our features.
I don't know. Are we all going to be in agreement on the next conversation?
WandaVision.
Last episode, series finale WandaVision.
Here we go.
Let's go.
So all I can say is so much for all those online theories.
Well, not just that. Online theories are online theories, and they can create a certain amount of expectation. But
that's the problem.
But if you leave that aside, leave
listen,
that
don't-
aside.
I agree. Okay, keep going.
I think they did a disservice to this show by bringing in these external elements. I don't think they did the show any favors by trying to bring in like this other stuff so that they could tie it to like the greater Marvel universe. Because
I mean, specifics.
so like the White Vision
Okay.
and Hayward's whole plan turns out to be
Which-
like a big nothing burger. Like
I
it's
was going to
just,
ask,
like,
could
just
someone
nothing.
please explain to me
Like-
what his true motivation
Right,
was?
right.
Because it makes
Like,
absolutely no
like
sense.
nothing comes of that at all.
I agree with
They
you.
hardly did anything with Monica except to establish that this is how she gains her powers.
And that she is going to be in a movie coming soon.
Right, and
And
that
the
she's gonna be
same
in
with
a-
White Vision, right?
Right.
Well,
This
I
is-
mean, we could
yeah.
get it.
So, and then like they bring in Pietro, which
That was a
again,
complete red herring. That was
this-
a complete
this
and utter
ag-
red herring that just
Right.
exploded the internet.
there again,
Yeah.
leave the internet theories aside.
Mhm.
Just the presence of that actor creates a certain amount of expectation.
Right. You don't
agree.
need to see any internet theories to make your own expectations about why he's there.
Right. So
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
what
listen,
I'm
we
saying.
made our own theories. We
I
speculated.
think that this series, because the ultimate resolution of the show is, of course, that Wanda has to give this up,
Yes.
you know, and she has to say goodbye to the vision she's created and to the
Mhm.
family she's made. And I think that if they had stayed more closely to that, the plot of the show would have been better served. As it is, these other external elements, like I said, like Hayward, White Vision, Monica, Pietro, why are they here? Because they ultimately don't play out
Right.
in a meaningful way.
And it distracts from Wanda's story as
Right.
well.
Well, the
Because
White
you're-
Vision is there because we want a Vision in the MCU. That's how we got him.
Right, but what I'm saying is like it's so obvious now that the show is over that these elements were brought in so that they
Just
could like feed him
add out
into
the-
another movie.
Into other stories. Yes.
But I
And-
think that you're going to see the same thing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. These are all interconnected. This is what Marvel, this is why we sat through the credits of Thor to see the end credit. What's going to lead into the next show? What's going to lead into the next movie? This is how Marvel has been perpetuating this entire universe for the
Sure,
last
but
10,
when you
12
do
years.
that in like an hour and a half or 2 hour movie, that's one thing. But when you
Well,
make
they
people
had
sit through like
8
eight
episodes. They
weeks
had-
of a show and like imply that these things are going to have a bigger impact than they do, I think that's when it becomes problematic. The focus of the show, I think, should have stayed on Wanda, and I think that the show would have been better for it. That's my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. It didn't take anything away from me that we didn't get a Mephisto, we didn't get an alternate X-Men universe, we didn't get mutants, we didn't get Xavier, we didn't get, Reed Richards, any of the stuff that we speculated on. I still felt that the ending was very satisfying. I like the resolution, the growth of the character, the whole Vision thing I thought was a little too wrapped up nice and neat. Because even like when he's transferring some of his memories into the White Vision, like some of those memories, like he's completely fabricated from
Wanda's
Scarlet
heart.
Witch, from Wanda. So she doesn't
his
remember when he was
perspective-
Jarvis in Iron Man. Some of that
Yeah.
stuff is like, how much does he retain? How much, whatever. He is now catapulted off.
'Cause,
We
yeah,
will
if you
see
think
him at
about
some
it,
other
that,
point.
that is a version of Vision created by Wanda's perspective
Right.
of Vision.
Based on her connection to the Soul Stone and all the Mind Stone or whatever would want the Soul Stone, right? Yeah.
So I felt a little disappointed by the ending because I was expecting all these things to come to fruition, and it's an over expectation because you only have 47 minutes, and
Right.
how are they going to wrap all these things up? I was most disappointed about Pietro, how that didn't go
Yes,
anywhere.
that was a cheat. I felt very much a cheat that he was just another person that lived in the town and that Agatha had manipulated him.
And it was just like a throwaway joke, like, oh,
Yeah.
boner. And,
Right.
and that was it. That was his
That is
express
true.
purpose for being there, was
His whole-
telling
his-
that dumb joke.
Yeah, they gave us a boner. It's like, boom, screwed you.
Right. And
Um,
it's like they created that expectation themselves. That is not like
They
fans
knew what they were
you
saying,
doing.
purposely
They
went out
knew
of your
what they
way
were
to bring
doing.
this actor in to create a
They're,
certain.
they're going to lose their minds when they see him.
Well, but all right. So to that point, you got Olsen and you got Bettany. Bettany's out there. Oh, I'm gonna get. Just wait. I get to work with my favorite actor, yourself, and Olsen. Oh, we got a Luke Skywalker level cameo coming up. Where's this cameo?
right.
Who
Like,
who are we seeing here?
right.
Nobody.
Again, that's not internet speculation.
That's
That's
them
them
going out
saying,
purposely.
like, there's this
Yes.
thing, and then they create an expectation that, people launch off of. Like, if they had just not said anything,
Yes.
Yeah.
then, maybe we'd feel differently about the end of this show. I liked the way they, I, you know, I liked the way they wrapped up Wanda's story.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Which this is all about. This is all, like you said, this is all about the grief and her coming to terms with all of this crap that's been thrown at her the last couple of years. She realizes, and listen, she's got a knockdown drag out fight with Agatha, which is really cool.
Which is
I
great.
enjoyed
Yes.
it. The two Visions realize pretty quickly that they're not going to beat each other with fisticuffs. So it's all brain on brain, and they just said, you know what, let's work together here. So that was a little anticlimactic, but then again, I don't want to see Vision getting beat up. But yeah, I liked Wanda's resolution and the fact that she has to end it.
I love the runes, the callback to the runes.
That was
like, a stand-up moment where yeah.
Thanks for the tip, baby.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the fact that she's now trapped Agatha as a character in this town, I thought that was really kind of neat. So we may or may not see her again. But you're right. The Hayward stuff went nowhere. It made absolutely no. Darcy doesn't even show up. She shows up just to take Hayward out. Hey, have fun in jail.
I know. Darcy's in it for like 5 seconds and she's gone.
Uh-huh.
So Monica, you're just setting her up for secret invasion with the Skrulls.
Right. And that's the thing. Like,
But that would I didn't even pick up on that. I'm like, oh, she's talking about Nick Fury, and then my son's like, oh, great lead into secret invasion, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even make that connection.
But it's it's frustrating because they were clear. It felt like they were setting her up to play a larger role on the show.
On this show, yes.
And she ultimately does not, and that's what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
she should have at least had a hero moment.
I think that they either needed to give more time to those, when I say external elements, I basically mean non-Wanda stuff, and they either needed to give more time to that and like bring it to at least something of a resolution, or have those characters play a larger role, or they just needed to not include them, because it just ends up coming to nothing in the end.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't want to take anything away from Elizabeth Olsen in this episode because she does
just
amazing.
This entire series, she is just. I mean, you go back and you rewatch everything that she has done. Every one of those sitcoms, she really has elevated, her acting skills. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, the scene, like when they're saying goodbye to the kids, like it's, she's saying goodbye to them. She's putting them to bed, but she's saying goodbye to them. She says goodbye to Vision. It's very emotional. And that's what I mean. I think the story would have been better served if they just kept that tight focus. Keep it right there on her. That's where it belongs. Hayward and all his machinations come to nothing. So, like, why even bring them in?
Yeah.
Right. And you'd think that Hayward would be, maybe this Vision is not that controllable, because Vision turns on Hayward.
He leaves it up right. He's just like, all right, thanks for bringing me back online. Now I'm out of here. So yeah, I liked it. I don't mind some of the side things, and maybe that we now have a Monica Rambeau in this universe, and I'm very happy with that. Although I read an article and they referred to her as Spectrum. So I guess
character has more than one name.
Well, I know it. She was a Captain Marvel at one point. She was Photon, but I thought maybe she would have picked up her mom's code name. But regardless, and then we get we get a mid credit, which was the Skrull reveal, And then we get the end credit,
The
which
end
is
credit.
basically Mount Wundagore or Wundagore, however you want to pronounce it, which is, you know, part of the Scarlet Witch lore. But she's full on Doctor Strange mode at this point.
Looking at the Darkhold.
She's yeah.
And you hear the
created astral
voices of the
projection.
kids.
Yeah, the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So
So it does imply that she may find some way to bring her kids back.
correct. Yeah.
mhm.
Yep.
And
mean-
you know, Agatha does say at one point that you're now more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. So I was
Yeah,
primed for
whoa.
that's I'm like, okay, give us Doctor Strange. She's
Yeah,
the cameo.
no, we
right?
got-
But-
we
Didn't
got
you
the
think he was?
tease.
Didn't you feel at the end like he was going to walk up to that cabin? Like, you know, you're still because you're still waiting. You're like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
Hey.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
there's no Luke Skywalker level cameo I saw, unless you're gonna say that Paul Bettany is another Vision.
I mean, I did not hate it. I just don't think that they should have introduced these other elements that ultimately ended up being a distraction.
I agree that the Pietro was a complete red herring. That was just dangled in front of us, you know, and then nothing.
I read one article. Well, maybe they're trying to fool us. You know, they're doing a double deep fake, and Pietro is really Pietro from the X-Men universe, but he's thinking that he's Ralph Boner. I'm like, no,
Oh my.
just give it up. He's he's Ralph Boner, and there's no more than that.
Written in. I did love, you know, when the family decided we need to fight, and they just do the battle like full on Incredibles battle stance. You know, the four of them there and the two kids, and I'm just like, all right, that's cool.
Her showdown with Agatha was like a Superman 2 level like showdown for me. That was I thought that was a great sequence when they were.
Yes. Yeah. Did you like the little nod to Wizard of Oz when the house falls?
You know, going back to the runes written on the inside of the walls of the Westview, you know, like the red
The
magic
hex, yeah.
cage, how she's playing possum and she's letting Agatha think that she's giving like,
Draining
take
her,
it. But she's actually writing the runes as she's doing this. A brilliant ending, I think, to their confrontation. And the fact that she traps Agatha there. She's now forever the nosy neighbor.
There you go. No,
Until-
not that.
Until the Doctor Strange movie, at least.
Maybe there'll be a nuclear explosion and she'll escape. There you go. Superman 2 callback. Thank you. So that's it. We are done talking WandaVision.
Mm-hmm. And we have a week off, and then it starts up with Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
which is going to be even shorter.
Oh, really?
I think it's only supposed to be 6 episodes.
15 minutes,
I
6
was thinking-
episodes.
No. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but that was what I had read some time ago. That there's supposed to be 6 episodes. I hope those 6 episodes are an hour long.
Yeah, right. But don't be surprised if they do the same thing, which is bringing these other characters just to set them up for future movie roles.
Yeah, because one of the speculations is that is Phase 4 leading to a Young Avengers movie. Is one of the
Well, I
things
think
that I read.
well, they've teased us again with that. We know Kate Bishop's showing up in the Hawkeye series.
Right.
We've seen, you know, the two boys as far as Wiccan and Speed. So who else is in there? Patriot. Geez, it's been so long since I read that book.
Yeah, I
But
don't know.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, once again, speculation. So what's the first movie out of the gate after Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Well, Black Widow, right, is
Yeah.
still
Black Widow would be
hanging
May.
out there.
Almost forgot about it. It's been
Intended
so
to
long.
be.
No.
My understanding is that was not what it was intended to be. They intended to have WandaVision end and go directly into the Doctor Strange movie.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of things have changed.
Yeah. No, the
Hmm.
WandaVision wasn't even. It was on the back burner, but it was the one that was most completed in production when COVID hit. So
Wasn't Shang-Chi supposed to be after Black Widow?
that is out there.
No. It was supposed to be Black Widow in May,
Yeah.
Eternals in
right.
November, then Shang-Chi should have been like this spring, right?
And somewhere in between, you would get Spider-Man 3.
Right.
That's still set for Christmas.
I read some ridiculous article. Just goes to show how stupid some of these headlines are. A ridiculous article about the Eternals that Marvel is overjoyed with how good it turned out. As if like what? Like what were they expecting?
Oh, they're
it to
already
be
hyping
terrible?
it. It's probably going to be terrible then. If they're already like, we love this movie, you need to go see it opening weekend. Really? No, really. Don't tell your friends about it.
They don't have to worry about it. I mean, at this
It's
point,
the Eternals are a weird choice, anyways. They're not super interesting characters from what I remember. But listen, we'll be there.
I thought the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy before that movie came out.
That is true.
This is such a niche character, grouping. Why would they be doing
Eternals
this?
will be very too stoic.
But
We'll see.
it depends on what on the person, because I hate Guardians of the Galaxy.
What?
Yeah, I don't like either of them. I think all those people are jerks.
I think that's part of the charm. Is that
See, but then to me, that's not charming. Like, they're just jerks, and I don't actually care about them. Like
that's like people who love Seinfeld. I'm like, those characters are unlikable. They are not nice people.
Right, and I don't like that show either.
There you go.
Out of all the Marvel movies, I think I like the Ant-Man ones the least, but I know I'm in the minority on that on this show.
And I love Ant-Man.
Yeah.
So it does it like the Eternals. It could be great, and like a certain segment of people are gonna love it, and certain segment of people are not gonna love it.
Yeah, you keep banging out these movies; they're not all gonna be monster. Like everybody loves it. Again, you're gonna start getting.
And as we were getting into just a little bit ago, with the running order of these things, that the way that we're seeing them. As we said, Black Widow was supposed to come before these Disney shows. Even though Black Widow is like a prequel, a throwback,
right?
Marvel just doesn't do anything random. That there somehow is supposed to tie in with the greater MCU plan. So is that thrown on its head now that we're seeing Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision first? Who knows? We won't know until we see Black Widow.
I'll tell you though, I wonder if at some point this is going to start working against them in the same way that as comics storylines become too complex after a while and they start losing readership and they start not bringing in new people because people are like, it's too complicated. I don't want to go back, and I don't need to
watch 20 movies in order to understand what I'm about to watch here.
Right. And I'm just wondering at some point if it'll start working against them, where people will just get fatigued and be like, I don't want to have to keep track of 500 characters and a whole bunch of storylines and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And that's a huge argument against not doing a multiverse.
Right.
Wait, what universe is this again?
It happened with 2 movies with DC. That might be more than just fatigue.
But I do think that it's at some point people are going to be like, I don't want to have to go back and watch 5 TV shows and all these movies and all this stuff to keep track of every thread of everything.
No, but you have people like my son and his friends.
Right, my son loves it too.
Are binging this stuff. Now it's never made him want to go to a comic book store and pick up a comic book. But
my son reads the comics.
Invested. Yeah, he's completely invested in the cinematic universe.
My son
every aspect of
watches the films, he reads all the comics, and then he's always telling me this is different from the comics because of this thing and that thing, and he's completely up to date. As soon as they said Darkhold, he was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this thing happened with the Darkhold. I mean, he's got the whole library in his head.
Did they negate Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Because I thought it is considered part of the universe, right?
I don't know if it's negated.
But I think one of the things that the MCU does really well is that you can watch these as individual. Obviously, it gives you greater understanding if you know the story of all the movies that preceded it. But I think if you pick any one of these things, you can watch it coming into it fresh. You would still enjoy it. I think for WandaVision, if you didn't know anything about it, like my son. So I'm so glad that he is finally looking at something Marvel other than Spider-Man. This is the first thing that he's been really invested in. And he has no knowledge of Infinity War or Endgame, but he loved WandaVision. So,
my wife's cousin's been texting me. We are absolutely in love with this show. She has no point of reference to any of the Marvel stuff. So, yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah. Preference.
That's all right. Well, listen, I'm not going to complain. We keep getting this stuff. I don't know. I had an additional thought there, but it went bye-bye. We've been yapping.
Yeah. But we have a week off of Marvel, and then it's back with Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, boy. Can we talk Justice League? Kidding.
I think I'm the only one that'll be able to watch it, right?
I was going to say, we don't even have the ability to watch it.
I'm the only one, and I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm going to. So
Oh, you need to watch it just to give us heads up. You need to at least.
it's like
We should
4
make a watch
hours.
party.
Come on.
Look, zoom us in, and we'll all watch it together. That'd be awesome.
And I'm reading now it's supposed to end on a cliffhanger. Come on. Do I want to sit for 4 hours and then end on a cliffhanger that'll never pay off ever? I don't know.
We'll have our 7th Batman in no time.
So what are we doing next week if it's not going to be Justice League?
Space Sweepers.
Oh,
Space Sweepers.
Yes. I made my wife watch a trailer last night. Hopefully get her primed to watch it with me.
I am super excited to watch this.
Yeah, I might watch it today.
Great.
Yeah, it does look fun. So it's on Netflix. It's a Korean.
Yes, it's a Korean movie.
Yep. So a lot of reading ahead of us, Jim.
It's a long movie, isn't it? It's 2 hours plus. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
219.
to.
219. That's 3 nights for you, baby.
It is. So I'm gonna have to plan accordingly.
You should watch Sky High first as a primer.
Yes, Sky High is going to be our second feature.
Yes, and we have no reason why we paired these two together other than the fact that they look like young cast members. So
Space Sweepers, Netflix, and Sky High, Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, I believe
Okay.
that is the case. Yes. Yep. So there you go. Thanks for listening.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
That
you.
was a long episode, my friend. That was the last of the last of the last. All right, next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIconfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
I've been duped. Such a schmendrick.